You know what's frustrating? Watching a player start ahead of you when you know you're better than them. You know you have better technique. You know you're faster. You know you're more creative. And yet somehow, week after week, they're on the pitch and you're on the bench. Most players look at that situation and immediately come to one conclusion. My coach doesn't see my ability. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Your coach might see your ability perfectly. That might not be the problem at all. Because football coaches don't just select the most talented players. They select the players they trust. And trust is built on things most players never think about. In fact, there are players all over the world who are losing playing time not because they're lacking skill but because they're sending signals that quietly destroy trust. Today, we're going to break down the real reasons coaches stop trusting players. And once you understand them, you'll start seeing football selection in a completely different way. Problem reframe. Most players believe football is a talent competition. The better player plays, the worse player sits. Simple. But if you've played football long enough, you know that's not how it works. You've seen technically gifted players struggle to get minutes. You've seen average players become starters. You've seen coaches repeatedly choose players who don't appear to be the most talented. Why? Because coaches aren't solving the same problem players are. Players focus on what they can do. Coaches focus on what will happen. That difference changes everything. A coach isn't just asking, how talented is this player? They're asking, what version of this player will show up on Saturday? And that's where trust begins. Hidden cause. The biggest misunderstanding in football is believing trust comes from spectacular moments. It doesn't. Trust comes from predictability. Imagine two players. Player A creates amazing moments, but sometimes disappears. Sometimes loses discipline. Sometimes stops working after mistakes. Player B isn't spectacular, but every game looks the same. They work. They communicate. They recover. They follow instructions. They compete. Most coaches will choose player B, not because player B has a higher ceiling, because player B has a higher floor. And coaches hate uncertainty. The higher the level, the more valuable reliability becomes. That's why many players spend years trying to become more talented when what they really need is to become more trustworthy. Let's talk about the specific mistakes that quietly destroy trust. Mistake number 1. You make coaches nervous without realizing it. This is the biggest one. Every coach asks themselves one question before selecting a player. Can I trust this player when things go wrong? Notice what they aren't asking. They aren't asking if you'll play well when everything is comfortable. They're asking what happens under pressure. What happens after a mistake? What happens when you're tired? What happens when the team is losing? Many players completely change when adversity appears. Their body language drops. Their effort drops. Their decision-making becomes emotional. Their discipline disappears. And coaches notice it immediately. Imagine you're a coach. Would you rather choose a player who performs at an 8 out of 10 every week, or a player who alternates between a 10 and a 4? Most coaches choose consistency, because consistency feels safe. If you want more playing time, stop focusing only on your best moments. Start paying attention to your worst moments. That's where trust is built. This mistake is especially common among younger players. They chase visible actions, goals, skills, assists, highlights. The problem: coaches are watching completely different things. They're watching recovery runs, defensive transitions, communication, positioning, decision-making, off-ball movement. Many players unknowingly tell coaches, I'll help the team when I have the ball. But football isn't played only when you have possession. Think about a winger who loses the ball and immediately sprints back to help. A midfielder who constantly creates passing angles. A striker who presses aggressively even when they aren't scoring. These actions rarely end up on social media, but they build enormous trust because they tell the coach, this player can be relied on. If your entire game depends on visible moments, your coach will eventually see you as a luxury. Reliable players become necessities. Mistake number 3. You make the same mistake over and over. Every player makes mistakes. That's not the issue. The issue is repeated mistakes. Coaches understand football is difficult. A bad pass happens. A poor touch happens. A missed chance happens. What frustrates coaches is seeing the same issue repeatedly. Because repeated mistakes send a message. They suggest the player isn't learning. Imagine a fullback who constantly gets caught too high up the pitch. The first time is a mistake. The 10th time becomes a pattern. And patterns create distrust. One of the fastest ways to earn a coach's confidence is surprisingly simple. Show adaptation. Show adjustment. Show that feedback becomes action. When coaches see improvement, they become far more patient with mistakes. Because now those mistakes feel temporary. And temporary problems are easier to trust than permanent ones. Mistake number 4. Your emotions are too visible. This one surprises many players. A coach isn't only evaluating your football, they're evaluating your emotional stability. Can you stay composed after a bad call? Can you stay engaged when you're substituted? Can you handle sitting on the bench? Can you remain professional during difficult periods? Because football careers aren't built during good moments. They're built during frustrating ones. Many players lose trust long before they lose their place in the team. It starts with reactions, complaining, sulking, negative body language, disengagement. And here's the problem. You might think those moments are private. They aren't. Coaches see everything, and every emotional reaction becomes information. Information about how you'll behave when pressure increases. The players coaches trust most aren't emotionless. They're stable. They don't let temporary frustration change who they are. That's a powerful signal. Mistake number 5. You force coaches to think about you. This is the hidden mistake almost nobody talks about. The most trusted players reduce mental workload. Think about that. A coach already has dozens of responsibilities. Tactics, selection, training, team culture, match preparation. The last thing they want is additional uncertainty. Some players create questions. Will they track back? Will they follow instructions? Will they lose discipline? Will they react badly? Will they maintain intensity? Other players create answers. The coach already knows what they'll get. No guessing required. And when selection decisions become close, that certainty matters a lot. The players who earn trust fastest aren't necessarily the most gifted. They're the easiest players to rely on. Practical application. So what do you actually do with all this? Here's a challenge. For your next 3 matches, stop measuring your performance with goals and assists. Instead, track trust-building actions. Did you recover quickly after mistakes? Did you follow tactical instructions? Did you communicate? Did you maintain intensity? Did you react positively to adversity? Did you help the team when nobody was watching? Most players obsess over outcomes. Trusted players obsess over habits. And here's what usually happens. As those habits improve, the outcomes start improving too. Because coaches notice patterns, not isolated moments. If you're trying to earn more playing time, become impossible to doubt, not impossible to stop. There's a difference. One creates highlights, the other creates opportunities. Identity level close. Let's finish with something important. Being benched doesn't automatically mean you're not good enough. Many players make that assumption, and it destroys their confidence. Instead of improving, they become bitter. Instead of adapting, they become defensive. Instead of earning trust, they demand it. Trust doesn't work like that. Trust is accumulated, quietly, repeatedly, over time. It's built every time you respond well to a mistake, every time you do your defensive job, every time you maintain discipline, every time you prove you're dependable. The players coaches trust most aren't usually the loudest. They aren't always the most talented. They aren't always the stars. They're the players who make coaches feel comfortable. Because coaches know exactly what they're going to get. And if you can become that player while continuing to improve your technical ability, that's when playing time starts becoming very difficult to take away from you. So before you ask, why doesn't my coach trust me? Ask a different question. What am I doing that makes trust difficult? Because that answer is usually where your next breakthrough is hiding. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more football development content focused on the hidden reasons players struggle and how to fix them. And let me know in the comments, what do you think coaches value more, talent or reliability? I'd love to hear your perspective.